Yes.
All right, so I'm going to provide a bit of an overview for you. And this photo here is a photo I took last year of Makepeace Lake in Atlantic County in the Pinelands. And all right, so the first question, the Pinelands, what is it? Well, the Pinelands is a vast mosaic of forests, farms, streams, and towns, and it's home to a sensitive ecosystem that receives special protection. The Pinelands National Reserve became our country's first national reserve after the passage of federal legislation in 1978. The reserve covers 1.1 million acres. You can see it outlined here in green. That's about 22% of New Jersey. The state Pinelands area, which is managed by the Pinelands Commission, is 938,000 acres, and that's this line here in red. So the Pinelands area includes part or all of 53 towns in 7 counties. And here's a photo here of one of them, downtown Egg Harbor City. Other examples include Mullica Township and also Hamilton, downtown Hamilton, and downtown Medford. So those are other towns. But as you'll see in this map here, this shows all the Pinelands municipalities, and you'll note that some of them are located entirely within the Pinelands, or in some cases, only partly. Some towns you'll see are perhaps only 50% in. And here's a breakdown showing you by county how much of the land is in the Pinelands. So in Atlantic County, 63% of the total is in the Pinelands area, and 64% of Burlington, 38% of Camden, 19% of Cape May, 14% of Cumberland, 16% of Gloucester, and 39% of Ocean. So what makes the Pinelands so special? Well, here's what the Pinelands looks like from satellite images. You'll notice here the boundary here in South Jersey, that's the Pinelands area. And if you note, you'll notice how green it is. That's because it's how forested it is. And the areas that are yellow tend to be areas over here that's upland agriculture. But by and large, when you compare it to other parts of New Jersey, you'll see how forested the Pinelands really are. And approximately 80% of the Pinelands area is forest, wetlands, and water, as shown on this map here. So the state Pinelands area covers about 19% of the total area of New Jersey. And this is a photo here taken from atop Apple Pie Hill Fire Tower, and it's pretty much pine trees as far as the eye can see. And it makes up the largest body of open space on the mid-Atlantic seaboard between Richmond and Boston. And there's water everywhere, as you'll see in this photo, and throughout the Pinelands. You're either atop water or water coming to the surface. And what we have here is the Kirkwood Kohansi Aquifer. Those are layers of sand and gravel that contain an estimated 17.7 trillion gallons of pure water. It's the lifeblood of our ecosystem here. Everything relies on it, and that includes the people who live here. It provides fresh drinking water for more than 1 million residents in South Jersey. Now, if you were to be able to vacuum up, have a giant shop vac, all that water, it would cover all of New Jersey 10 feet deep. And there's a photo there of how beautiful the Pinelands are as well. We're also home to globally rare habitat. Here's a photo of the 12,000 acre pygmy pine forest, which features dwarf pines and oaks. This is an area with high fire frequency, and these pines and oaks typically only get about 6 feet tall at full maturity. It's the largest of forest of its type in the world. And the Pinelands are born to burn. And I know a lot of our viewers out there read about in the newspaper wildfires that we have. It is a fire dependent in many ways ecosystem. It's certainly adapted to fire. It's one of the most fire prone regions of the country. And our upland forests are dominated by pitch pines and other species that have adapted to the fires. And so one of the things that's done each year is prescribed fires, which are set to reduce the fuel loads on the forest floor. And here's a photo here I took a few years ago of a prescribed burn at Black Run Preserve in Evesham Township in the Pinelands. And what they're doing here is taking a little torch and setting these small small intensity fires that are burning up the brush so that they can head off future fires in the future of a larger type. Here's a photo taken just, I believe, about 2 years ago of a major fire that occurred in the Pinelands. And you can see how dark and grim it looks. But what actually happens very shortly after is that you'll see the areas rebound. This was a photo taken of another fire that occurred and burned roughly 17,000 acres. And this was only about a month or so later. This just shows you how the forest can rebound after forest fires. So if you ever hear about forest fire in the Pinelands, you'll have a better sense of how this forest can be resilient to fire. We are also in the Pinelands, we have a botanical treasure. And this is a photo here taken at the Webb's Mill bog, which is in Greenwood Forest Wildlife Management Area. The Pinelands is home to 850 plant species. And I highly recommend a visit to that spot there to see very rare plants and orchids. And it is open to the public. In the Pinelands, we have 92 species that are rare, listed as threatened or endangered, including the Pine Barrens gentian on the left and the federally protected swamp pink on the right. We also have species such as bog asphodel and false asphodel. The species on the left, bog asphodel, currently can be found in the Pinelands and nowhere else in the world. So that's pretty special. And that photo on the right, I took that photo a few weeks ago. The false asphodel is another protected species, and it's a true magnet for pollinators. We have 27 different species of orchids. Grass pink, orange fringed, and white fringe are some examples. We're also an animal oasis. We have 500 species of animals, including 43 that are listed as either threatened or endangered. Our poster child is the Pine Barrens tree frog, which is a threatened species. Corn snake is an endangered species, as is the tiger salamander. The spotted turtle is not, but I really like spotted turtles, so I had to put that in there. So here in the Pinelands, we also have quite an agricultural industry, and we do help put the garden in the Garden State. New Jersey ranks 4th in cranberry production, and all of the cranberry production is occurring in the Pinelands, and production totaled approximately almost 53 million pounds in 2019. And there's a photo here in the back showing the wet harvesting of cranberries, which typically occurs in October. Beautiful time of year in the Pinelands. We also are home to a huge blueberry industry. New Jersey ranks 6th in blueberry production, and 46 million pounds were harvested in 2019, and with a value of over 85 million. Pretty impressive. And so you can imagine, with all this land and all this water, how there have been quite a bit of interest in developing this area. Here we are in New Jersey. We are the most densely populated state in the country, more densely populated than China even. And so thankfully, there was foresight in government, and the public had support for protecting the Pinelands. And the first step was in 1978, Congress passed the National Parks and Recreation Act. It was signed into law, and it established the Pinelands National Reserve. And the state then took steps as well. They were already keeping an eye on it, and had some executive orders in place. And they established the Pinelands Commission on February 8th, 1979. And a few months later, Governor Burns signed the State Pinelands Protection Act into law on June 28th, 1979. And that called on the Pinelands Commission to then prepare a Pinelands Comprehensive Management Plan. And they needed to adopt it, and they did. And they got it done very quickly and efficiently, given the tall task that was at hand for managing this huge part of New Jersey. And it took effect in January 1981. So that means we are celebrating our 40th anniversary of the plan. And that plan, which you're going to hear about today, contains the rules that protect the natural, cultural, and historic resources in the Pinelands. So let's talk a little bit about the Pinelands Commission. So here's a photo here of one of our offices at our headquarters in Pemberton Township. We are a state agency. Our mission is to preserve, protect, and enhance the natural and cultural resources of the Pinelands National Reserve, and to encourage compatible economic and other human activities consistent with that purpose. Okay, so that we'll talk about that a little bit more when we get into the management areas, what that second part pertains to, specifically that there are different management areas and sections of the Pinelands where you have preservation and other areas where growth is channeled. So we have at the commission a board of directors made up of unpaid volunteers. It's 15 members, and here's a list. And there are 7 appointees for the governor's office. We have 2 vacancies right now. That's why you see only 5. And we have appointees from each of the 7 Pinelands counties. And we also have an appointee from the Secretary of the Interior. That's currently vacant as well. So our board meets once a month, and they're open public meetings. Since COVID, we've been meeting online on YouTube, but typically we would meet in that building I showed you a few slides ago, the last slide. And so that's our board, and we have a staff of approximately 40 people. And here's a breakdown of what that is. We have 6 different offices overseen by the executive office, and we have a planning office that deals with conformance, which is what you're going to hear about in a few moments. They also undertake permanent land protection activities, and economic monitoring, among many other things. We have an information systems office, business office. Our science office is constantly out doing scientific research, very busy doing research for monitoring ponds and wells, and they have numerous projects going on to radio track snakes. Communications office, the office I oversee, we oversee the website and social media sites and do public education and outreach programs every year. The Regulatory Programs Office, you're going to hear about in a little bit. They review development applications primarily and deal with intergovernmental programs and enforcement. So let's talk about the Pinelands Land Capability Map. No doubt you've probably seen this map and wonder what all those colors are. If you haven't, here it is. And so our comprehensive management plan establishes 9 land use management areas. And each one of these have different goals and objectives and permitted development intensities. And the boundaries are shown in these different colors. And you'll notice in this next slide, well, let me go back. Those management areas are implemented through local zoning that must conform with Pinelands land use standards. And that's the conformance that we're going to talk about in the next presentation. So let's talk about the first management area, the preservation area district. You'll notice these slides that come up next, that each of the titles are the same color in the management area on the map. So hopefully that helps provide you some perspective. So this is the core of the Pinelands here. Our preservation area is the most critical ecological region, large, contiguous, wilderness-like area of forest. This is where you're going to find many of our 135 different species of threatened and endangered plants and animals. And in that area, no residential development is permitted except for special cultural housing exemptions for property owned by families prior to 1979. And then there's limited opportunities to develop residential and commercial uses in designated infill areas, which total approximately 2,100 acres. Other permitted uses include berry agricultural, forestry, and low intensity recreation. And that makes up 31% of the Pinelands area. Here's a photo of the a location of the preservation area, and much of it is publicly owned. Over 82% has been permanently protected to date, 243,375 acres, significant. And examples of properties in the preservation area include Wharton State Forest, which is the photo you're looking at here, it's the Mullica River, Bass River State Forest, Brendan Burns State Forest, and Penn State Forest. The next management area is the forest area. And this covers 27% of the state Pinelands area. And it's very similar to the preservation area district in terms of its high ecological value. This is a largely undeveloped area, and it's in the dark green here. And it contains high quality water resources, again, provides suitable habitat for many species of threatened and endangered animals. And in this area, clustered housing is on 1 acre lots is permitted at an average residential density of 1 home per every 28 acres. Roadside retail within 300 feet of pre-existing commercial uses is also permitted, as are campgrounds and low-intensity recreation uses such as hiking, biking, fishing, and horseback riding. 58% of the forest area, nearly 150,000 acres, has been permanently protected to date. And some examples of significant properties in the forest area include Belle Plaine State Forest, the Makepeace Lake Wildlife Management Area, which I showed you in the first slide, Peasley Wildlife Management Area, Tuckahoe Wildlife Management Area, which is what this photo is here, taken last year, and Wells Mills County Park. And if you look back on the map, large portions down here in Atlantic and Cumberland County make up the southern forest area. Next up is the special agricultural production area. This makes up only about 4% of the St. Pinelands area, but it's certainly an important part of our ecosystem and our industry for berry agriculture. I'm pointing at it here. It's in the core. It's discrete areas within the preservation area that are primarily used for cranberry and blueberry production and horticulture of native Pinelands plant. And in essence, this area recognized a unique and integral part of the Pinelands economy that is a key and essential character of the Pinelands. And in this area, the only permitted residential uses are farm-related housing on 40 acres and cultural housing exemptions on 3.2 acre lots. No doubt, if you've driven through Chatsworth and down into Washington Township, Burlington County, you've seen the Cranberry Harvest. Hopefully, those are a lot of areas that are in the special agricultural production area. Here's a photo of Cranberry Harvest in the special agricultural production area. Significant properties include the Franklin Parker Preserve, which I believe is now over 11,000 acres in size, and large portions of Woodland, Washington, and Bass River. So next up is the agricultural production area. This is 7% of the State Pinelands area. It's the area here that's in a sort of a brown color. These are areas of active agricultural use. We're talking about generally upland field agriculture, such as corn and other row crops, along with adjacent areas with soils that are suitable for expanding agricultural operations. Greenhouses can often be found in this area. And I mentioned corn earlier being one example. Farm-related housing is allowed on 10 acres and non-farm housing is allowed on 40 acres. This region also permits non-residential uses such as agricultural commercial establishments, such as roadside farm markets and agricultural processing facilities. Here's a photo example of a site in the agricultural production area. I mentioned the greenhouses, and this is cabbage in the foreground. It is concentrated in Atlantic, Burlington, Camden, and Gloucester counties, and approximately 41% of that area has been permanently preserved to date, largely through state and county farmland preservation programs and through the Commission's own Pinelands Development Credit Program. All right, next up is the rural development area. This is the area here in yellow. You'll notice in many cases it's toward the edge. This is an area that makes up 12% of the State Pinelands area, and it's a transitional area. It serves as a buffer between the conservation-oriented and designated growth areas, the conservation areas being the preservation area and forest areas, as you'll see here. And existing development in the rural development area ranges from low-density single-family homes to retail commercial uses and active recreational uses, such as athletic fields and golf courses. Clustered housing on 1 acre lots is permitted in the rural development area at an average residential density of 1 home per every 5 acres. And community, commercial, light industrial, and active recreational uses are also permitted. All development in the rural development area must be served by septic systems. Public sanitary sewer is not permitted. There's a photo here. I mentioned golf courses. This is a golf course in the rural development area in Jackson Township. And every county in the Pinelands area contains at least one rural development area, with the largest being found in Buena Vista, Evesham, Franklin, Galloway, Hamilton, Jackson, Morris River, Medford, Monroe, Southampton, and Winslow. So now let's move on to the military and federal installation area. And these are the areas in the light blue. This makes up only about 5% of the Pinelands area, and it is home to major pre-existing federal facilities. This management area was created by the Pinelands Commission as a way of accommodating the unique characteristics of these existing federal facilities and recognizing their value as substantial economic resources in the Pinelands area. Permitted uses in this area are those that are associated with the function of the installation. And so there's two facilities are the 42,000 acre joint base McGuire-Dix Lakehurst and the Federal Aviation William Hughes Technical Center. So those are the two facilities in that management area. Next up is the Pinelands Villages, which is in the red here, and that makes up only about 3% of the Pinelands. And it includes 47 small existing spatially discrete settlements that are appropriate for infill residential, commercial, and industrial development that is compatible with their existing character. And most of those villages are not sewered. Therefore, residential development is permitted on lots between 1 and 5 acres in size. Non-residential development is also permitted, provided it is consistent in character and magnitude with existing structures and uses in the village. Right, here's an example of a village, Richland Village. And Pinelands Villages are located in Atlantic, Burlington, Camden, Cape May, Cumberland, and Ocean County. Pinelands Towns are next. On the map here, they're in purple. It's about 2% of the land in the state Pinelands area and includes 7 large existing spatially discrete settlements that generally have wastewater and/or water supply systems to support existing or future development. And municipalities in this management area may permit a wide variety of uses, including high density residential development and sewered commercial and industrial uses. And so those 7 Pinelands towns designated in the CMP are Buna, Egg Harbor City, Hamilton, Lakehurst, Whiting, Woodbine, and Wrightstown. Here's a photo here of downtown Hamilton, Pinelands town designation. Last but not least is the Pinelands Regional Growth Area. This is that area that I referenced earlier when I talked about our mission statement, how the second part of it talks about encouraging compatible development consistent with the purpose of the plan. And so these are areas in orange toward the edge. And these are areas that are generally located on the fringes and it's home to existing development and adjacent lands that have infrastructure such as sewer, roads, and other utilities that can accommodate new development while providing the essential character and environment of Pinelands, protecting it. The CMP provides municipalities with the ability to permit a wide variety of uses in these regional growth areas. Residential development in the form of single-family homes, duplexes, townhouses, apartments, and assisting living facilities is permitted. And these uses typically range in density from 1 to 10 units per acre. Sewered commercial and industrial uses are also permitted, as is mixed-use development consisting of both residential and commercial uses. Again, you'll see they're toward the edge. And here's an example. This is a photo of the campus center at Stockton University in Galloway Township in the regional growth area. The regional growth areas are in 24 towns. I will not read them all for you, but they are on this slide should you want to review them. And this last slide here, I wanted to talk about, as the chairman referenced earlier, over half of the Pinelands area has been permanently protected. So the plan has worked over the course of the past 40 years to channel growth toward appropriate areas, those areas such as regional growth areas and Pinelands towns. And while also efforts have been undertaken and successfully made to preserve the most important parts of the Pinelands. In fact, 94% of the protected land of that 479,000 acres is located within the conservation areas that we are charged with preserving and enhancing.